Welcome, everybody, to our October 2019 forecast and discussion. My name is Jona Bryndis. Yeah, guys, sacred self-healing members, self-healers, self-discoverers. Welcome, everybody, here to this sort of intimate get-together to discuss incoming energies and also contextualize some of the things that we're experiencing. So there are things that are happening in us, just sort of as a general intro here to these forecasts, which, as you know, are more or less reports. So some of the things that I will be talking about here in regards to the October energies that are coming in are things that you are already experiencing or that you're picking up on, but you don't really know how this is going to contextualize for you, okay? So some of the things I want to help you with contextualizing, sort of bringing hindsight in. So I like starting these discussions with a little bit of a review of September energies. I mentioned this before, this looking back and making this connection forms or strengthens neural pathways in us that allow our precognition to become more accurate, more precise. So it's like a correction, it's like a backwards correction, a feedback loop, as I sometimes call this. So looking back and reviewing is a very, very important part of precognition, and also just your higher vibratory perception altogether, because oftentimes it's not really what we see. There's a lot of things, especially in times right now where there's a lot of sixth chakra, third eye stuff going on. We pick up on a lot of stuff. Many of you are sometimes even tormented sort of by this overlay of things that they're perceiving, straddling two worlds. But we often only see little snippets of it. And that makes it difficult for us to create meaning. Sometimes we fantasize the meaning because we actually have no way to relate it to what's going on. And that can, sometimes confuse us. It can overwhelm us. So September was all about, the refinement of things and working with this higher perception that comes or that is coming in, and how to, really relate that to our practical life. This finding without seeking, or the perfectionism that I mentioned, the idealism, all these things becoming more conscious to us, and all this is becoming more, sort of real for us. It's just this process of becoming more real. This awareness, perhaps that there is a lot of seeking. Does anybody want to share?
September was pretty rough for me, and I look back at the notes that I took from the beginning, from the last, from the September current energies, and very spot on as far as the expectations based on what you had said, but pretty intense. A lot of core stuff came up, but it was a very good training experience for me to just recenter and witness and surrender. I really learned a lot about surrender versus, I don't know, the way that I differentiated letting go and surrender was that letting go, at least for me, was more of a mental process. And surrender is just totally heart-based and just a whole nother level that I had experienced, but I really needed to surrender versus let go in September. And I could really feel the depth of many of the patterns that I've already seen, but just so deep and so intense, and so much compassion for just the pain that little Ricky, the little me, the younger me had, that just I had nothing, I had no way of dealing with it other than the way that I did.
Which was the mental, the like sort of mentally processing it.
Absolutely, sort of repressing the emotion and just mentally dealing with it, because I just emotionally I just couldn't handle it. So it was a very interesting month in that sense, like very great training experience. Um, but I am sort of glad that October is right around the corner.
Well, yeah. I've been accused to be a little gloomy in my forecast. I don't know what to say. No, but no, Rick, thank you so much. When you were talking, I was reflecting on some of that for myself, and I realized, that September really was a month where we all kind of were forced to our knees, in one way or another. For some of you guys, in the physical and the emotional and the mental, and for some of you in the spiritual sense. For me, it was very much a spiritual thing. Like I've had like almost like a second awakening in September, where this duality in me, sort of seeing myself and understanding and even feeling myself as a soul, and yet also as a 3D person that has to function in some way. How much that, like you said, can lead to either being emotionally overwhelmed or repressing things. I had to deal a lot with resentment this past month.
Yeah, I had a lot of that as well. Yeah.
Like just like this kind of dialogue, like, gosh, I'm so tired of this shit, blah blah blah. It's like, it's the mixture of being bored, by the repetition, of things, being impatient maybe with myself, so some of these things, and I had to sort of call myself to order and say, look, I mean, on a soul level, all that has no meaning. All that has no meaning. Not to opt out, because I'm a very pragmatic person in that sense. But I hear what you're saying. It's so that's why the word surrender and all that comes with that here from a sacred self-healing standpoint shouldn't be taken lightly. This isn't just about making things go away. We're not teaching to meditate things away, although there is a temptation there. It does work to a degree, but when it really comes to being fully awakened as the soul self in this 3D body, and sort of starting to feel the purpose of all of this, all right, some of the things such as our temporal understanding of things, how fast things go, right? Who of you had issues? Rick, did you have that too? Who else had this? Give me your hand sign here. Things are not going fast enough, or not
Oh
like,
yeah. Yeah.
that was really strong in September. Yeah. Okay, I can see you guys' hands. No, they were just sort of tagging along, but not real change. And I know most of you are so, so willing, to change. It's not that you are not willing, but then there's something, that, these blind spots, whatever they make us get stuck. They make us get stuck. Either we feel victimized, or we feel like, oh, if only my partner, or if only my money situation, or some kind of external conditions were different, well, then I could do what I want to do. And that doesn't work out. That just simply doesn't work out. It's that we simply don't get away with this. And there is a lot of stress that comes with that, that has, here in September, has for some of us gotten the best of us. This fear, this core fear of like, self-worth, and deserving to be here, deserving to love, be loved, deserving joy, and all that. I don't know. Did you guys feel this too? It went straight to the core.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely, absolutely. And my only option was to connect with my soul in a sense,
yeah,
and really and truly witness and surrender.
yeah.
And I don't know, maybe that's the spiritual aspect you're talking. I mean, like, just it
Hmm.
really forced me to not use any other method but truly connecting with my soul and witnessing what was coming up and surrendering it. And so it was a wonderful training experience, but challenging, certainly challenging because it went so deep, so such core level. And yes, that for me, it was this sense of I can't make it in this world, which has
Mhm.
reverberated through my mind since early childhood, and um, nothing that I hadn't seen, but there was a whole nother level to it that really forced me into that really strong, truly loving, compassionate connection with myself and my
Mhm.
soul. So there was definitely a beauty in it, but not without challenge.
Thank you. This is a very beautiful, very clear way of reflecting on this. I couldn't have said it in any better words. Being forced to, well, it's not that we are being forced to do anything against our will. That feels differently.
Right,
It,
right.
it was more like a remembrance, wasn't it? Or still
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. My intention, is to heal and to overcome it, and that was the option that I was directed to go in. Yeah.
Hmm.
So it wasn't really a force in that sense. It was just me sensing that I could go another route, but that would just create suffering.
And it's almost like that was not even a question
Right.
anymore, right? It was like we kind of know that as these awakened beings here that we all have identified ourselves as, right? That this isn't just a fluke. This isn't just us being weirdos or French dwellers, and the us, I mean, just the fact that I don't know about you guys, but for me, clearly it is an us. It used to be just me and oh my God, and I'm all alone. And so now, I'm literally seeing a whole part of the population, being part of this. There is a move. This is like a movement. This is like this whole awakening thing is not as mystical or as and yet it is, but it is nothing so special anymore, really, because we're now like talking about like what 18-20% of the population, that has these kind of thoughts. Not everybody talks about it. Not everybody is able to put words to this, to express this, to go into the communication of that. So that is the part here that we, since we've already been actively working on this for quite a while, have sort of an advantage now. We already have a lingo. We already have things that we can call this. I mean, just the fact that we can talk about such deep concepts like surrender. Okay, surrender obviously here in this context, right? But that's huge, guys. That's huge, right, Rick? I mean, it's like, you talk to a person out there and you're like talking about, oh, and I really experienced the depth of the meaning of surrender and not just, sort of mentally letting go. And they're looking at you like you're talking Chinese. No offense to Chinese, but for me, that's language I do not understand, right? And sometimes it even scares people. So we already have a lingo, we already have ways to express things. And I want to emphasize this here that this future that we are looking at, this immediate future, like the next, say, I mean, I'm seeing clusters here, like the next 16, 18 months, and then maybe a 5 and then a 10-year cluster. So things that will happen. I don't know how they're going to happen, but they will happen. We're going to realize that all this work that we've done and that we needed to do was just so that we could, maintain our own sanity, and that we could like bring these two worlds, right, that we have now, that we can now put words to harmonize this more, that this ability will be a very sought after ability. This is, when I talk about bifurcation, guys, I'm talking about that. I'm talking about the part of the population that is able to see truth, that is able to discern truth and name it, and the other part that is somehow seeing it too, but opting out and not wanting, whatever it is sort of the reality that they're hanging on to, to go. Very much like in the Matrix movies, in the first Matrix movie, really, the first half hour. So the way this is being displayed there is quite accurate. there's a choice that we all have to make. And the choice is if we are willing to face truth. Face truth, because that then forms the ability to discern truth. So what good is it that we know truth if we cannot integrate truth? It's like with a lot of these political things and these things that are happening on the global scale here, be it earth changes, be it, like the scandals and some of the injustices and so forth. And it's not that we didn't know this, right? We kind of knew this all along. But, what we are doing here is really not healthy for the planet. That the the banking system, the political system, the pharmaceuticals, food industry, and all that they're not really integrous. But we don't really want to face the reality of that, right? We just and we kind of externalize this away. And yet, when it comes to our day-to-day decisions, day-to-day choices, we can't just put that away. We can't just ignore it. We can't just no, because that's part of this compass in us that is telling us now, what is okay and what isn't. And this is most of these things that are not rocket science. We don't have to be don't have to study metaphysics for 20 years to form this inner compass, this inner navigator that helps us to navigate this world here. That we are now beginning to see in a larger scale. This afternoon, I compared this with some of the historical developments of maps and navigation tools. The world, the planet hasn't really changed that much, at least not in the last 20,000 years or so, right? And the navigation tools and the maps that were there, like maybe, I don't know, 8,000 years ago, and then 2,000 years ago, and then 500 years ago, there was a steady increase in the precision of that. And today we all have GPS on our phones, right? And we can be at a certain place geographically, precisely at that place, without a question. We can navigate the geography of this planet now, okay? And what we're now learning is to navigate truth, to navigate reality. And that's something that interestingly has to be formed within ourselves, within this navigator that can tell us, despite all the things that we say maybe see with our five senses, see, hear, smell, touch, sort of the reality that is being displayed, what is true and what isn't, what is right and what isn't, what's life promoting, what's conducive for the individuals and also for the entire collective. That is what we are doing right now. That is what all this is about. All this talk about discerning truth, all this talk about becoming real, all this talk about our soul self and true self and ego self, all that is about being able to navigate in a world where we are now beginning to realize that what we are seeing is not necessarily what is true. It may look and feel real, but it's not necessarily true. This is a new sense, guys. So in one of the updates, I talked about the eighth sense. This is something that is coming as a result of this awakening. For some of us, it doesn't necessarily happen in a spiritual sense. It happens in this energetic sensitivity. For some, it happens as recognizing that there's something like empathy that connects us with other people. And for some of us, it does happen in the spiritual sense that we literally wake up one day and we begin to feel this soul self in us that accompanies us here, and begin to see that there's more than just this 3D reality. Okay. So in September, this was this was happening on a bigger scale. Unfortunately, a lot of people, are still, for the most part, overwhelmed and feel afraid of that. So what we saw here in September was and this is a statistically significant increase in anxiety and panic attacks. Okay, so there's something in us of like, that our nervous system responds to as, oh my God, sort of, I'm losing it type of thing. And that part, guys, is real. So these are the conditions that we have right now. This is what we are now finding as, well, new reality. This isn't going to get better, guys, or better as in like go away. That sense, that you're awakening to isn't going to go away. And you're not going to find it soothing, to recognize how this outside 3D world is becoming crazier and crazier to a degree. Okay, because for this to reach a critical mass and for like sort of this to become actually a new paradigm of living together and as a whole sort of collective, growing into this new way of living, way of being, it still takes a little bit. So this isn't this part here, this feeling these two realities simultaneously. This isn't gonna change. Okay, but what will change is you, the way you see it and the way you feel about it, the way you contextualize it. Because all you really need to recognize here is that this is how you from now on will navigate this reality, this 3D life here. Okay, you're gonna have experiences like, for instance, when you talk to somebody and they'll say something and you'll hear what they say, and at the same time you might hear maybe a different kind of voice. It sounds like their voice too, or you see different expression on their face, or you see certain etheric things that are happening while you are having a normal 3D conversation, and this person is completely unaware of. But their etheric self is talking to you too. So what will happen to you more and more and more now is that you will realize, first of all, you're not alone. Second of all, this is happening to other people as well. And thirdly, that this, which you are recognizing within yourself, that soul self coming through, bleeding through, okay, that it's also bleeding through in others, them being aware of it or not. And that's part of the deal too. The more you grow into your own true self, the more you can also see other people's true selves. And the more you recognize that all these power struggles, all these struggles in relationships and work and so forth, that, this is all really insignificant in the bigger picture of, sort of coming here as a soul and living, actualizing your soul purpose. So what will happen as a result of all of this is a massive spiritual awakening, really. How do you think that's going to go down? With more and more people awakening to this, what Rick, what you said, sort of kind of being forced to go and connect with your own soul. A bit chaotic at first. Why? Why do you guys think that this is going to be a bit chaotic at first? Exactly, because a lot of people don't have guidance. Okay.
Just a lack of understanding as well.
Yeah, I think very much so. Confusion, just utter confusion, not knowing what it actually is that they're picking up on, thinking that they're crazy. Yeah, yeah, Denise. Yeah, because they won't understand. Total confusion. Yes, you guys are right. I mean, but in a practical sense, how do you think that's going to play out? I mean, chaotic. Okay, it's not like that we had like super harmonious times here in these last whatever 10 years. Like a jungle. Okay, yeah, that's probably how we're going to perceive, or how a lot of people perceive this internally already, I'd say, especially younger people. Yes, difficult relationships, difficulty with relationships. I agree, Sheila. That's especially with younger people already manifest. But that's the problem. Where are they going to turn for guidance? What do you guys think? Where are they going to go? YouTube. YouTube explainer videos. If it's a younger generation, yeah. Some will look for people like us. That's correct, Sheila. Yes. They'll look at the older, wiser people. But most of the people in our generation are not really that much wiser. So, yeah, and some will not want to see. And this is exactly true, especially, I guess, sort of the older generation, because whatever has been real for them has been real for so long. Why change it now? Yeah. But there's going to be stuff that has to happen here in our societies, okay? And this isn't even political talk. If you think about it, there's got to be an outlet for that. This in the history of mankind, they always had to, with every movement, came a counter movement, and with every power that arose or that died down, new things come in. So this is like a constant ebb and flow of things. So what do you think where this is going to go as a society? Like, the whole world, the whole human collective as a society. People are going to need some real leadership. Leadership. They're going to be looking for leadership. They're going to be looking for, well, some will look for rescuer, and some will look for scapegoat, and some will look for someone who can pull us out of this. This is part of the human psychology. Yes, I agree with you, Denise. There'll be collapse first and then rebuild. That's right. But how do you think that's going to go down? I mean, we say this as it's like baking bread, right? But I mean, we're talking about a whole civilization, and we're talking about different generations. We're talking about young people being born into this world, and having to look at a future that is completely uncertain. That's exactly true. There's not At this point, there's not a lot of hope. And I understand those kind of thoughts, like, why even, put children in this world? And I get asked this question quite a lot. And I will tell you that I have a very, very clear standpoint. I mean, I'm a mother of three. Obviously, I've already answered that question for myself, but it is difficult to really follow this divine nature in us, that wants to create, that wants to procreate, that wants to refine, that wants to correct, that wants to improve. And at the same time, sort of seeing a system that collapses. Yeah, so we will all have to develop our own inner navigator, guys. And this is what you've been doing here in the Sacred Self-Healing community, or within this, school of thoughts, if you will, like looking at things from, the perspective of the true self, false self, the ego versus true self, so what is true to me and what isn't, not based on what I'm supposed to do or what is expected of me, or how this ideally would come down, but what is really true to you, to become the best you can. And the only authority that can help you with this, to navigate this, is your own true self. Your true self, basically, the navigator between your soul self, that eternal, unchanging part in you, the divine part in you that is linked to whatever you want to call the source, divine source, divine Wi-Fi, okay, into this 3D, the materialization of that in 3D. And there's so many things that have to happen along with this. We have to, first and foremost, and I think this is where most of us struggle, accept our limitations. This is the hardest part, because we come in here, especially those of us who have a soul awareness, as an eternal being, so to speak, into this 3D body, okay, that is finite, that that is aging, that is dying, that gets sick, and that's one of the things that are really, really hard for us to live with, these limitations. And then we have to live with the limitations of other people as well. And all these things that we have to face, our psychology and our autonomous nervous system, and some of our hopes and dreams and idealizations and all that is now being refined. Okay, all that needs to be refined because that's our navigation tool. That is what is happening here in the larger context. And in October, guys, that's going to be put to a test. Okay, because each time we grow, each time sort of we shed a layer, we transcend something, sort of comes that integration, that actualization test. Right? Is this really true now? Did this really sink in? Is this, really what this is about? Or am I still sort of hanging on, some of my, seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, ego coping mechanisms, that determine sort of how I make choices. What are my choices based on? Are they based on, this awakened soul that I am? And, some of these higher vibratory values and integrity that comes with that, the heart-based awareness, I think, Rick, that's how you called this, or am I, just going to leave it as is and, shove my feelings away. If I have the lingo, I'll try to mentalize it somehow, justify it somehow, in kind of more or less way. I don't mean this in a sarcastic way, but as energy workers, we understand that this is how it goes. Wait till that comes into a physical manifestation in form of illnesses or disorders, imbalances, chronic or acute autoimmune things, and mental imbalances, mental disorders, emotional disorders. You see what I'm saying? So this is kind of like where we're standing right now. And somebody asked me today, is this going to be again like a time of, where you stand at the cliff and you have to make a choice? And my spontaneous answer to that was no, the choice already made. We already made that choice. We've come so far now, we've already made that choice. This is more about being consequential about this now. This is about walking the talk. This is about claiming freedom now, the freedom to think, the freedom to believe, the spiritual freedom, but also the freedom of dependencies, codependencies, dependencies from substances or any other kinds of externalization. That is freedom. And also, and this comes with that process, is self-responsibility. We understand here that with this freedom comes a responsibility, but not, like as in guilt, that it's our fault. No, the responsibility, all right, to really interact with the world and other people on this higher vibratory or higher heart perception based level, where we recognize the I am in everybody, we recognize the true self in everybody, and we no longer need to manipulate or project or, you know, try to tweak things in order to get sort of what we desire. Okay, what makes us feel temporarily better about ourselves because we no longer feel bad about ourselves. This is the ego addiction here, that in the context with the sacred self-healing program that we talk about. The ego in and of itself is an addiction, guys. And you know, we are, when we externalize our power, we are to a degree addicted to that. The core definition of addiction is that there's a part of us that believes without it we cannot live. Okay, without it we cannot live, or we cannot get to where we want to be. We cannot feel the way we want to feel, or whatever. This can play out on different levels. So this is about freedom, guys. The freedom of choice, the free will. And with it comes responsibility, but not, again, the one that, you know, where we take responsibility for other people's lives, other people's feelings, where we distract ourselves with all these external things, but responsibility for our own energy, for our own resources, for what we put out into this world, okay, for our own time management, for our own energy management, all of that. And I've called October second chance, which I think is extremely positive in my way. I mean, I'm laughing about it because, you know, of course, you can always contextualize things in a negative way. That depends on your consciousness level. You know, if you want to look at things in a pessimistic or optimistic way, I think we've all learned this lesson here, especially in these last couple months. Why am I calling this second chance? Because we need to put it up a notch here. We need to get out of our passivity. If we want to really embody the soul being that we are within reason, within the 3D conditions that we were given, okay, we cannot afford anymore to get caught up in these triangulated, enmeshed, entangled power games with other people. Codependency. Who of you present here has identified themselves as having codependent traits? Do you guys all know what codependency is? Like, well, I'm assuming because pretty much almost all your hands are up. Okay. All right. So codependency, it means that we have somehow, and there's several layers to that, but we have made other people's needs and the love to other people more important than our own needs, the love to ourselves. And while on the outside this looks like a, you know, very selfless, kind of nice, kind thing to do, right? There's also a lot of backdraws to this. There's a lot of projection in there. There's a lot of covert control in there, you know, where we are manipulating people, say maybe through our emotions or through our energetic sensitivity, okay, through those energetic projections, and not ending up, you know, feeling like a victim in return, and not understanding, you know, why we're being treated like doormats, you know, because we keep sort of inviting this exploitative nature or type of person in, you know, through taking responsibility for everything and everybody. Yeah, and that is a huge, you know, sort of mismanagement of our energies. Yes, it comes from, and this goes hand in hand with, at least it correlates with our energetic sensitivity, and most of us being empathetic towards others, because it we really come here as this eternal soul with the sincere willingness, with the sincere, actually almost need, to be of service and to to be part of a greater healing process. And our soul recognizes that. So, most of us here have this really deep inner prompting, of wanting to help others. But the time hasn't been mature yet, it hasn't been ripe yet, instead of really sort of recognizing, when what we can do truly is of help, to the greater good of a person or a collective or a family or whatever. We've just blindly been taking, control over everything, be it overt or covert, and got caught in this codependency. All right, so always needing somebody that we could heal or that we could rescue on whatever level that we could provide for. That's the part that gets you confused, in the sense of that you recognize that this is still like a huge blind spot, or sort of energetic or potential energetic leakage in your life. Is that what you mean with the confusion?
Yes, I think so. It seems to be where, the thought or the feeling to be helpful, and now I'm just trying to learn to discern kind of what we've talked about before, which is when is that appropriate, and when is it basically projecting what you're talking about. And that's the part that has always been confusing, because it wasn't very clear, because the intention, of course, seems so good at first.
Mm-hmm. And it is. It's that there's nothing wrong with the intention, just in how we translate it.
Right. So then it turns into, or has more recently turned into, okay, then it's almost like a holding back. So then it's that whole, should I stay? Should I go? Should I help? Should I not? And so it's still just learning my own dance, really.
And that's the navigation that I talked about in the beginning. That like this, the roadmap, through all this. Okay. And this is, I'm saying this to you guys here as active self healers. There's one thing I can give you is, and this will be significant for October and after, when it comes to helping other people, okay, first of all, only help them if they ask you. That's number one rule, especially for people who come into this world with this passion or with this drive to want to be of service. Okay, so there's no more mandatory healing of people or mandatory convincing them of truth, right? This is how we got into a lot of trouble in the past. And this is also where a lot of our resentments are located. If we're really true to ourselves, it's us going the extra mile that has gotten us into that place of exhaustion and being drained, and not feeling sort of feeling this reciprocated or validated. Okay, so that's the first thing. Only really do this when asked. And the other thing, and this is more important now for the future, because people will start to recognize that there's something different about you. So people are going to, sort of start coming to you more and more. They'll recognize that in you, is only do this when it's reciprocal. Reciprocal in the sense of that there is an appropriate energy exchange. Because guess what? You, just like everybody else, have to household, have to uh, manage your time, your resources, your energy, like everybody else, and more. And why do I say more? Because all these years, decades in some of your cases, that you've invested, not just your time, also your money and traveling and books and listening to workshops and going to seminars and whatnot, in refining your energy, in learning all these things, guys. Okay? That's precious. That's precious. That's not something to throw away. Why would you throw that, at others? It has no value for them that way. Okay, it's precious. As a soul self, you need to recognize that all this work and all this, well, self work, self reflection and going into this deeper place with yourself and exploring and correcting and making amends with yourself and others and all that. Guys, that's huge. Okay? If somebody wants your help, I mean, in the past, we've thrown it at people that didn't even want it. Okay, I really hope that you guys are more or less already cured of that. But in the future, you're going to have to look at the energy exchange of that. You're going to have to be consequential with that. Are you getting energy back? Not as in selfishness, not as in, this isn't selfless. This isn't less selfless. On the contrary, because you understand more than most people how fickle, how sensitive this balance in you is, how hard it is to get into your inner center, your balance, to stay grounded, to stay connected. All right? The truth of that is that with that ability that you are training, or that you have trained, or that you are refining, or that you are, that your intention here, your alignment that you express with that is much bigger than you understand. This isn't just about you being able to be kind to people, sympathetic to people, you know, getting validation from people. That's not what this is about. Everything that you transcend within yourself, okay, you are clearing the path for others. Okay. And that's why this leadership is a natural consequence of all this training that you've done. You are growing into a leader, but not in the kind of leader that we have seen in the past. Leadership in the past had a lot to do with force, had a lot to do with overpowering others. Not that kind. The kind of leader that leads through example, that leads through what you have become, through the ways of your beingness. Not so much through what you do, but the beingness. So if you waste all that away, like say on one person, that isn't even appreciative of it, that's exploitative, that's narcissistic, or taking advantage. What are you doing to yourself? This isn't about when it's appropriate, when it's not appropriate. This is about the ability to discern, okay, when what you're doing is true and when it's serving that sole purpose that you came here for, okay, and when it's not serving it, when it's serving some ego purpose, maybe an abandonment issue, maybe an inadequacy issue, maybe just general validation, or loneliness, fear of, I can't even, this is not the place to discuss all these different kinds of fears, but you guys understand what I'm saying, right? This much bigger, okay? People are going to wake up to this now, here, the bigness of things, okay? And you'll really see how spiritual healing is no longer just sort of a buzzword. That is a needed skill for a whole collective, really, to not let our collective sort of be driven into insanity. Okay. And so, yes, it won't take long, guys. You're going to realize this very quickly here within the next couple of years, how all these things that you've learned here, how they will change your life. They will change the way you see life and how you see yourself and how you will, basically present that in the outside world. Okay. It will show you that what you need is the discernment as the most important tool for you to decide, what you align your energy to, what you, sort of spend your energy on. It's like the healing is a two-way street, and it's self-propelling. So if there's true healing that takes place, it always is reciprocal in and of its nature. It's always mutual, and you don't need to worry about that. But it assumes sort of this mutual willingness and alignment. So a big part of this discernment, guys, is aligning and feeling the alignment of others. Like, what is it really that, this is based on? Am I doing this out of fear not to be loved, out of fear being left out, or out of fear not being, for the need of approval or for the need of attention or whatever? Or am I doing this out of this genuine love that I have for myself, for my, in recognition of this higher power living in me, coming to an expression as me, recognizing that higher power also in the other, and literally, recognizing divinity in awe and communicating with divinity in awe. And how can we learn this refinement? It's a process. How do we learn this? Well, that's what we are going through right now. This is where the testing comes in that I've mentioned for October. It's the part here that will literally show us how, first of all, the limitations of ourselves, so the ego stuff, that limits us, the stuff, the dependencies that we have, how all that limits our freedom, whether it is self-imposed or imposed from the outside, doesn't matter. You're going to really feel this now, how your freedom to think, your freedom to live, to love, and to choose, how that is constantly being bombarded, constantly being betrayed and manipulated. Okay, so you can't really trust in anything anymore, at least not in what you see. You have to learn to trust in that heart's navigator that is the only, sort of true compass here that can tell you, if you resonate with the alignment of a job or another person, or, and be willing to let it go if it doesn't. That is where most of us have struggled here in the past. So October in that regards is not going to be easy for us, in regards to relationships. Yeah, most of you guys' hunches here or intuition is very accurate. It's going to play out in our relationships more and more here in this next month. And a lot of you guys will literally, it's like a second awakening, awaken to the toxicity of some of the relationships that you've agreed to, be it your romantic relationships, or the relationship with your family members, or work relationships, friends, people, even places that you live, like how toxic they actually are for you. And in at the same token, what will also happening is a further discernment of your perception, of your perceptivity. So all that goes hand in hand. So as you're learning to discern some of your visions, some of your etheric experiences, your etheric reality, right? It will become more and more clear to you, and you'll become more and more confident in that. But there's a bit of a backdraw to it. You'll also become more and more clear of some of the, well, unexplored layers of your ego, your shadow aspects. And October has a very strong trauma signature, meaning that, there's the unresolved trauma in us that will come forward so it can heal. So with it, it also comes a huge, huge opportunity to heal some core traumas. But you know how this goes, right? When light illuminates that which was in the shadows, previously, it will become more visible. We will have to be willing to face that and work with this. So October will be on an individual and collective level a month of shadow work and trauma healing. But also in regards to some of the practical things that we still have to transcend, that we still have to really, sort of get our alignment straight in regards to our dependencies, especially codependencies, where we've externalized our power to partner, to job, to money, to some of these material things that we are beginning to realize are no longer a valid navigator. If things aren't true, guys, you cannot make them look good or, sort of smooth them over, justify them away, or, through enabling or through passivity. They're not going to become more true. If they're not true, they're not true. And the more you try to look away, to opt out, or to the more resentment or fear. So it's this fear and anger. They go hand in hand, guys. Because anger is always a response to fear. So depending on where you have the hardest time, what is harder for you to accept about yourself, whether it's that you are in fear or that you're actually feeling anger, depending on where your resistance is, you're going to feel either one of them more. And the deeper meaning, the deeper context here is to allow that to come forward, to acknowledge that, and to really work with that, to work with some of these dependencies and go through them. And that's when you begin to feel this freedom, really to manifest in your life, and you begin to see a lot more options. This will also inspire you and bring forward a whole new level of creativity, especially in regards to business. Business is going to be a huge subject in October, and especially, for you also in conjunction with your long-term goals. I'll be honest with you, I don't know a single empath who can thrive in a corporate work environment. This doesn't work with our needs, with our perceptivity, at least not how it's being cultivated in most of the corporations. So many of you will not just feel sort of the input, but also the courage to finally say, I've had it. Why should I constantly be in that state that I'm fighting against outer conditions? If I also have the option to just become independent and do my own thing. Yes, there's a lot of fear that comes forward, and that will also be this testing here on the level of your value, your self-worth. What can I even provide? And finding the meaning in all of that you are, not in what you do, but in that you are. And again, that's sort of reflexive here, that brings you back to your alignment. Like, what am I? What have I been identifying with? So this process around identity, finding our true identity, and discovering this soul self in us, and this 3D self as somewhat opposing realities, that needs to be harmonized. Now that's the process that we're in, and this needs to happen in an active way. This is not a passive process. This is an active process, but it is not an event. It is, after all, a process that's been taking lifetimes for most of us, or, can take lifetimes for some of our souls coming in here, right, with a higher conscious level to begin with. We go through this, in our childhood, through some major trauma that, again, forces us to recognize the soul self in us, that brings forth this remembrance of this higher power in us, and therefore, sort of sets us up karmically for growing into our soul self maybe a little faster than others, because our karma, quote unquote, forced us to go there. And that isn't a bad thing. All the trauma that we've experienced, that we are experiencing as empaths, energetically sensitives, is part of our karmic setup, so that we get to this moment in our life where we say, that's it, that's enough. I need that freedom now. I need that freedom to be myself, or else, I'm just gonna like shrivel up. I'm just gonna contract. And that's, where this third component comes in. So first, freedom, self-responsibility, and true self-love. So everything that you can contribute for to the planet, to the collective here, cannot be based on specialness or, some kind of ego gratification, validation, or something. It has to be based on self-love. It has to be based on you recognizing the sacredness and the preciousness of that soul self within yourself, and in every man and woman out there. But I want to also mention one thing. A lot of you guys are going to feel something like a call, something that feels like you came here sort of as some kind of spiritual warrior, some kind of soul fighter type of person. And we've contextualized it, based is still on our ego trauma and our attachments, and to degrees saw it from whatever power or gratification it can bring for us, whatever kind of soothing or relief it can bring to our life. This isn't what this is for, so that's why we had to kind of repeat the grade. All right, and now is the second chance. So there are things that are happening, in these multidimensional realms that indeed do take place here in this 3D realm. Something like this battle in heaven, without the religious connotation. Something along those lines, as above, so below. And these things are all real, except for the way we interpret them the majority of the time. In this sort of dualistic God versus devil, or demons versus angels. That's not a very sophisticated way of seeing that. That's not the case. In this sort of linear way of understanding reality, we see everything as binary, as either good or bad. Truth is, it really isn't that way. It's more like there's light and then there's no light. And what this means is really that these dark forces, or whatever you want to call them, also the entities and so forth that come with that, and that mess with our etheric in the astral. Okay, that what they were taking advantage of is the absence of light in you. And what is the absence of light in you? It is the absence of your self-love. It is the absence of the love for the divine in you. And so this battle that takes place within each and every one of us is, the expression of this battle in heaven between, between the light and the dark, the divine and the absence of the divine. So all I mean to say with this, guys, without getting you in a spin, of like dark entities and how they're messing with you, is to remind you of the self-responsibility that I mentioned. Because, you know, with all this training, you begin to see that most of what you have been experiencing as dark force is the inner absence of light in you. It's your own shadow, your own darkness, but not darkness in the sense of badness, you know, like that you are bad, that you are possessed or anything, but darkness in regards to like places in you or parts of you that are so fragmented or so buried that the light can't illuminate them, and that you you know, are shoving away or repressing, or you know, are not willing or ready to face your shadow, basically. Okay. And so the only thing that can get you out of this, and I suppose this is what you're here for, is self-love and recognizing the sacredness of your being. These demons and dark entities, for the most part, guys, are the materialized shadows of people. And the entities that haunt you, they get attracted to you because, or you know, energetically, those all fields, because you have that resonance in you. The absence of self-love is where you're vulnerable. It's all the things that you cannot love about yourself that you project into this world, that you externalize, that you project, and those are the things that come back to haunt you. That's how simple that is. It's simple, but it's not easy. So this is what you recognize, you know, in this this full self-responsible and free understanding of your soul being. This isn't about fighting against something. This is about making a stance for something. So you can call, you know, all the people, the unaware people in this world, agents of the matrix. Well, if you want to look at it in that sort of dualistic way, then you are agents of the light. Okay. But that doesn't mean you have to fight against the darkness. How are you going to fight the absence of something? It means that you have to fill it with your light. And in order to be able to do this, first of all, you got to lose your fear of the dark and transcend it within yourself. And then you're going to have to make a stance for it. You're going to have to choose it. That's the alignment we always talk about. And then the third part of it is to become it, to be it, to know who you are, to embody it. That's what a spiritual warrior is, guys. Goosebumps. Yeah. Yeah, I'm talking to your guys' souls, guys. I'm not talking to your minds. Yes, it feels a bit vulnerable to talk about this, but again, here, you know, this is part of me sort of being the guide here. Okay, like to give you guys a words for this, to give you guys, you know, things that help you to label it, you know, to no longer leave this sort of in this fuzzy realm. Yeah, I don't want to tell you guys, you know, like things, and really don't want you guys to believe everything. Not even what I say. I need you to verify this. Everything here that I do, my entire body of work, is based on assisting people in experiencing all this for themselves. And you know, I give enough education and educational material with it so that you can study it yourself, that you can verify it for yourself. You know, most of it isn't even, I haven't invented any of this. You know what I mean? This is universal, you know, universal, I don't want to say knowledge, but, you know, it's something that is coming through through our collective, human collective, that is available to all of us as resources. Okay. So yes, guys, feel confident to make a stance here. Thank you, Denise, for this isn't it's just about, you know, who's right and who's wrong, or who gets more attention or gets more validation. This is bigger, guys. Okay. And that's why I cannot honestly say, oh, this is all going to be awesome. And, you know, I cannot go into this fake positivity. That wouldn't be responsible. Would it now? This isn't going to be easy for most of the people. And this is what you've been, knowingly or unknowingly, been preparing for years or decades. Yeah. You're going to feel this now. This is going to crystallize more and more for you guys, that this is no child's play. This isn't just sort of, I mean, you know, I've talked about this on other occasions. We all sort of started being interested in energy work and energy reading and shamanism and all these kind of things, maybe for power reasons, you know, to feel like that we could get more control over things or feel less powerless, right? Ego reasons. But you guys are, most of you are now, and even the new people that are coming in, you guys get to this place now where you recognize that this is more. It helps you to be more accountable for yourself, for your big self, right? The you know, the higher self version. And others, but not responsible for them, for their feelings or for their life or for rescuing them, but in a different way. Yes. Recognize the sacredness in them as well, and respect their choices too, guys. Because with you gaining freedom, it also means you have to respect other people's freedoms, their freedom to choose. If they choose to not face truth, then that's their choice. You need to honor that. Okay, so to wrap this up here, a few markers, temporal markers. What do I mean? Dates. You know, things that where you can expect maybe more intensity or even, you know, sort of more positive, more support. One of the things I think that is now obvious, this year is very clear. I mean, you know, I've been talking about this for years, but you now see this more and more. Things such as equinoxes and solstices, full moons and new moons, those are all like sort of natural. I mean, you know, they're like a pulse somehow, you know, and they make things a bit more intense. You guys all notice this, right? There simply are sometimes that are like way more intense, and in those times the overlay gets stronger. You know, this straddling two world overlay, and also the dealings with our body, with our physical body. Yeah, you all notice that. Yeah. So, okay, that part isn't going to get easier. You really, really need to work with your body now, guys. October is the beginning of something that I can only call like a health crisis. Okay. So, you really need to work with your vehicle. This is your vehicle. Okay. So self-love, self-care, those aren't just concepts, guys. This is, you know, if people would only love their bodies to half as much as they love their cars, in some cases, you know, we'd have a lot less issues here. But October is going to be stressful collectively here on this health level. Okay, so I don't know what it is, if it's a new virus that's coming in or a new sort of resistances that they are discovering, or whether it's just a particularly sort of bad flu season. But you know, you're gonna have to. It's like all on top of this physical and autonomous nervous strain that we already feel in this tiredness. Okay, so physical, you've got to take care of that. Two markers I can give you. So like 8th, 9th of October, lots of sort of pain of the past is coming forward, and often that triggers some of the chronic stuff in us, inflections, inflammations, You know, this is really effective there. And especially around the end of the month, guys, there's a lot of darkness, a lot of trauma in that regards that is coming into our collective here around the 27th, 28th. Okay. When you take care of your physical, guys, you got to be careful, and this is why I'm sometimes a little conflicted when I talk about this, because it can't be fear-based. This isn't about you, you know, like, oh my God, Jona said, blah, blah, blah. No. This has to do with self-love and self-care. Okay. Preciousness, sacredness, remember? Same with the money thing. This can't be based on fear. This has to do with you valuing, you know, knowing where your value is, knowing where the value of your work is, and the worth of that, you know, and really tackle that now. First chakra issues has to do with the physical. All of you guys who have issues with money, you have, you know, issues with, you know, like being afraid of making your living, being afraid. Guys, you gotta get your shit together now. Sorry for this direct speech, but you gotta like really work this out. You can't be sitting there like a, you know, in you know, caught in your specialness and victimhood, and well, I don't want to do this because what if, you know, this is not the right thing for me. Oh well, you know, then you're gonna evolve, then you're gonna grow, you know, and eventually you're gonna find the right thing. But that's better than, you know, staying, you know, sitting on your couch depressed and anxious and not doing anything. Huge hint here, again, not financial advice, for entertainment purposes only. Cryptos. Pay attention, guys. Huge opportunities. This is no longer just like a nice idea. Yes, this is all real now, and you cannot say you weren't told. Cryptos, times where I would pay very, very close attention around October 7th, October 8th, and then really cool opportunities October 28th, around that time. So we're going to have to see how that works out. The last couple days in October are going to be extremely intense. Extremely intense. So a lot of you guys going through clearing, through letting go, surrendering, as you called this, and it's really about this discernment that we talked about here of what is true and what isn't. If something is true, you can't lose it, guys. So you don't need to be worried or afraid of that. You know, but the passivity is in most of the cases not doing anything. In most of the cases, more toxic than, you know, experimenting, exploring, making mistakes. So you really, really got to get this down now with your boundaries consequentially. Consequentially. This marinating in your own stuff and, you know, tiptoeing around, all that is like karmic justice. Okay. So this first week here in October, okay, this is all about recognizing that there's this forward movement, you know, into something. You're being pulled into the future. In the last 5 months, we're all sort of like this, like maturing, refining, yes, marinating, you know, sort of steaming in your own stuff. And you get, the way I see this, until the end of January, beginning of February, to sort this out. So get your stuff in gear, guys. Then around the middle of the month is a very beautiful phase, like October 10th, 13th, very beautiful things, you know, like where you begin to feel somewhat of a proof that this roadmap, this navigator that you've started to trust in, that it's really actually working for you, and that it's steering you into opportunities, into situations that are really beneficial for you. But then right after, you're also going to immediately see the collapse of all the things that are not true in your life. So there's a lot of sort of letting go, loss here. I know a lot of you guys are going through witnessing, the passing maybe of loved ones. That is something that, will, you'll see this with other things as well, not just like people passing, also sort of the death of illusions, very strong. So the collapse of these illusions is part of this navigator showing you what is true and what isn't, and that will then put sort of this self-transformation turbo into the way you perceive your own reality, and this is going to help you to harmonize this, so you're going to feel a lot better. So mid of August, really beautiful time. And then towards the 20th, 21st, 22nd, there's going to be some other things that happen, okay? Some like things in our collectives, politically, as well as with the earth. It's a bit shocking stuff, but we're by now almost used to that. And, we're all this is now, reminding you once more to make a stance. This is making a stance, and a lot of you will feel this exactly kind of what Rick described, almost like a forced letting go, and that leads you to true surrender. It leads you to recognizing higher power, steering you towards it, that this is sort of like really what you came for in the first place. Okay, so then the last segment here, sort of 25th onward towards the last, the 31st of October, Halloween, really intense trauma healing stuff, trauma healing opportunities, meaning a lot of stuff will come forward, fear will resurface, and, yeah, you're going to get triggered, okay? But that's also the time where you have to, if you do make that stance, where you can see, where you have to seize, the opportunity and see what brings you forward. So don't be afraid of that, because with all these things and this heart mind, navigator that you have been working on, and all these skills that you've learned here in the course of the sacred self-healing, you're going to be realizing that you've gotten so much better with your energy management. My tip for you here overall for October, for this second chance, right, is be consequential, guys. Be consequential with your boundaries, with your energy management. The inner guidance, that is coming forward for you, act on it. No more diddle-daddling around. Become that you've known all along, deep down. Okay. Yeah, I mean, energy forecasts on that level, they're not like, tell me what's going to happen in the future. You already know that. I don't want you to look at these forecasts or my words as predictions. Those are all things that you already feel inside. I'm just trying to give you contextualization help. Is it ever going to become easier? Oh, yes. Every day is going to be easier. You need a bumper sticker. No more diddle daddling. Yeah. Love it. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you for your trust. But again, verify for yourself. And hope to see you soon. Wishing you a wonderful October. Lots of healing. Lots of, seeing things for yourself, and becoming able to make a stance for these things that you've known all along. Lots of opportunity to go deeper and to consciously work with this. All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Talk to you soon. energetic adjustment, liberation. To the love and peace within, I dedicate myself. I am one with my true self, the part in me that is unchanging, eternal, and infinite. I embrace change as the evolutionary path of my being. And trust in my true self to guide me to unfold my highest potential. I accept all limitations as learning experiences and feel nothing but gratitude for any opportunity to grow. I willingly and voluntarily choose to let go of everything that no longer serves me, including my own illusions, coping, and enabling. For this, I consciously focus on what is true and important to me. I let go of my focus on anything that is self-degrading and weakening. And I refrain from promises that I can't or don't want to hold, so I can respect myself and others at all times. I only dedicate myself to what supports and honors me and others. Due to my alignment to the divine consciousness permeating through me, I am respecting integrity above all. I devote my energy to be open for truth on all levels, so I can surrender any resistance in or around me to my inner higher power. The more I resist, the more I succumb to ego. Through connecting with the power in my heart, I hear with clear all feelings of not belonging or not being wanted. And I let go of attachments, limitations, self-imposed restrictions, energetic ties and karmic binds in any dimension or time to any person, entity, or ego perception. Nothing and no one has the right to disrespect my values for as long as I respect myself. I let go of the need to fight for my space, integrity, values, or worth.
I have the right to be here, and I belong here, now and at all times. I now understand that the more I want my true self, the more wanted I can feel. Yes, I love who I am. True self, thank you for my energetic sensitivity, as it shows me when I need to stand my ground and when I need to let go, when I need to self-correct and when I need to shift. You guide me to grow beyond what my ego cannot see. And you're there for me to support me with the wisdom of my united heart and mind. I can rest now in my heart. As there is nothing left to do than to live and create my life in love. Thank you.